Good morning, and thank you for having me on again. Before we go on to that, can I just dispel a myth that Mr. Kutinov just said about the essence of all this? The two breakaway areas, Donetsk and Luhansk, they are part of Ukraine. They haven't broken away. They've been taken away by Mr. Putin and his soldiers. 1.5 million Ukrainians and Russian speakers have left Donetsk, Luhansk, and are being displaced in Ukraine. So this myth that they continue to put out there, that somehow this is a breakaway, in Ukrainian we have a saying, "Sut strave." The essence of this is, again, this false narrative that Putin and his people put out there. Going back to immigration, I had a call from the Prime Minister yesterday. We discussed the visa issue because we're having a meeting with Minister Hawke today to discuss how these visa issues are going to be dealt with. The fact that Australia has taken this quite seriously, and immigration programs are never easy, but we'll be looking for some clarity today because there are a range of things that have to be looked at in the immigration. It's those 400 people who have applied now, and obviously the important thing they need to remember that they have to have the bona fides, they have to be true and correct applications. But then we're going to have the issue of those people who if in case of war, and we hope that it doesn't happen, if we end up people who are fleeing, how are we going to deal with those issues? We know that the embassy now is working out of Warsaw. We had the conversation with the Prime Minister, and we'll try and get some clarity on these issues today. But I think it's a step in the right direction, and it shows a great support for Ukraine. So
how much further do you expect the numbers to increase?
I think the numbers we through the Ukrainian World Congress and through the Australian Federation of Ukrainian Organisations, we have a humanitarian program in terms of trying to assist ukrainecrisisappeal.org. What we're trying to do is work internationally. If things escalate, how do we deal with these issues? So very hard to talk about numbers, but I think it's more important to talk about process. There are some anomalies. For example, we know that there are a number of people who have babies who don't have passports at the moment, don't have documentation. So what are we going to do with those?
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll get some clarity today from Minister Hawke.
Well, if they're involved in a full-scale conflict, they'd be unlikely to get any documents, wouldn't they?
Well, that's the problem. You've got to get across the border, so that's an issue. But obviously, things are escalating. I think the Australian government has come out very strong in terms of sanctions, as Minister Payne has just said, and the Prime Minister reiterated that. We're talking about stages. We've had stage 1 sanctions. We're now into stage 2 sanctions, and as things escalate, we would expect further sanctions. We're asking for example. We'll be asking sooner or later for military, doesn't mean boots on ground, but military assistance that Australia might be able to provide.
Do you believe that this is about NATO, or do you think this is a chip on the shoulder about the breakup of the Soviet Union?
Look, Mr. Putin, somebody put it this way, guy needs a psychiatrist. His rant the other day in the Duma, where he rewrote history, he rewrote borders. This is not about NATO. This is about Putin, and he's on the record as saying, not once, not twice, but numerous times, that the biggest disaster of the 20th century was the fall of the Soviet Union, and that he will work towards bringing it back together again. So this is his ambition. He needs a very, very strong message. This could turn out to be a complete international disaster, full-scale war, which nobody wants. So this Sunday, Ukrainians around Australia will be lighting a candle of prayer and pray together and thank Australia for all its support.
Stefan, good to get your thoughts again. Appreciate that. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.